This is your friendly reminder that immigration without assimilation is invasion.
Look at all the white nationalists that were commenting on her social media pages. That's what's concerning to me.
We can talk about the Muslim culture. I would argue that those aren't particularly equal.
You've proposed a 50% sin tax on OnlyFans creators to discourage what you call immoral behavior.
I feel that this is a classic case of Stockholm Syndrome. The victim, the enslaved person, doesn't feel that they have real agency.
Why don't we just bring in Sophie Rain?
Sophie, look, with all due respect, I want what's best for you. You are capable of anything you put your mind to. And so when you're doing this little cute Spider-Man dance online and you're creating this adult content, know that that person that you used to be still wants something more.
Who are you to be the great moral arbiter of what young women do with themselves legally in the United States? Well, James Fishback is one of the most talked about political candidates in recent memory, but the Republican candidate for governor of Florida also appears to have very little chance of winning. Traditional polls show Fishback trailing bigly, as Donald Trump would put it. At the time of recording, he has just a 10% chance on Polymarket, which has a very accurate track record on recent election outcomes. His main opponent in the primary, Byron Donalds, has the full backing of President Trump and the full Republican machine, with record spending to match. But Fishback has stayed in the race with a novel strategy of rage baiting, such as referring to his opponent as AIPAC Shakur, and by proposing some very radical policies. One of these policies is a sin tax, which aims to raise millions of dollars straight from the pockets of OnlyFans models. Well, in a moment, I'll hear the case against a sin tax for the most successful OnlyFans creator in the world. But joining me first is James Fishback, Republican candidate for governor of Florida. Well, welcome, Mr. Fishback.
Piers, thanks for having me.
So, look, a lot of people think you've got no chance of winning. What's the point? What is the point of continuing?
Well, a lot of people said that Donald Trump had no chance of winning when he ran in a 19-way primary in 2015. What I'm telling you, Piers, is that I'm here to tell the truth. And when we were at the University of Florida 2 weeks ago and we had 500 people in the audience, black, white, rich, poor, Muslim, Christian, Jew, that spoke to a real energy on the ground. And so I'm not going to put blind faith in polls that said that Hillary Clinton was the shoo-in and that Kamala Harris was the shoo-in. I'm going to speak truth out of an unapologetic love for a state that my family has called home for 4 generations now. The truth is that I love my state, but my state is hurting right now. Young couples can't afford to buy a home. People are being laid off and billionaires are firing them to bring in cheap foreign labor from South Asia, all at the same time when essential services like healthcare are being denied to veterans all over this state. And so I am fighting for a state that every single Floridian can afford, and that's why I'm running for governor.
One of the big things you've been on recently, you've been on a very critical run against Israel, particularly for roping America into the war in Iran as you see it, because you say they're too cowardly to fight for themselves, although they are fighting, obviously, in Iran. It's interesting because in November 2024, a few weeks after October the 7th, you said this.
So Trump moved an embassy, got Muslim-majority countries for the first time ever to recognize the rightful existence of the Jewish state of Israel, and that justifies the heinous attack we saw on October 7th. Iran was only exporting 150,000 barrels of oil a day under Trump. Now they're exporting 1.6 million. They're making hundreds of billions of dollars a year more. That emboldens them to give their proxies weapons, money, and the vigor to attack the Jewish state. And that is unacceptable in the international community.
So a lot of people look at that clip and the extended version and other comments you made at the time and thought, well, here's a really staunch supporter of Israel and the Israeli government and the relationship with America. And now you appear to have done a massive U-turn on this and become incredibly critical of them. A, do you accept that characterization? And if so, explain the change in mind.
Well, Piers, I'm glad you played that clip and gave the full context. I'm grateful for that. What I said in that clip, I stand by today, which is that Iran should never be funding the crazy terroristic proxies of Hezbollah or the Houthis or Hamas. And I also have been critical of the Israeli government. What I'm especially critical of is the fact that they now want $200 billion for the Pentagon to fight a war that Marco Rubio himself said we are fighting because Israel was the proximate catalyst for getting us in this war. So two things can be true at the same time, Piers. You understand the nuance. The first thing that's true is that, no, Israel should not be attacked by Iran. And then number two is that the United States should not lose free speech rights or send billions of dollars of taxpayer money to the Israeli government every single year. And so I'm going to speak the truth in a way that I think people in my state appreciate.
Okay,
it's not
and
either
just to be
or.
clear, do you believe that Israel has a right to exist?
I believe that countries don't have right to exist, but I believe that people have a right to exist. And Jewish Floridians, like Christian and Muslim Floridians, have a right to exist in my state, and I will defend that right. Piers, I condemn all forms of anti-Semitism.
Hang on, just to be clear. So you don't think Israel has a right to exist?
I don't think that communist China has a right to exist, but I think the Han Chinese as an ethnicity
I'm not talking about China. I'm talking specifically about Israel, which, as you know, the Israeli government is emphatic that it has this right to exist, and that right is threatened by its neighbours, many of whom want to cause it harm, through the terrorist proxies from Iran in particular. So the issue of whether it has a right to exist is a very hot one, as you know. So just to be clear, you just don't think they have a right to exist, Israel?
I don't think that any country has a right to exist.
I know you said that. I'm not talking about any country. I'm talking about specifically Israel.
Specifically Israel, and specifically and generally every country in the world does not have an inherent right to exist. Who has a right to exist are people, and that includes Jewish Floridians who are struggling just as Christian Floridians are under the weight of a cost of living crisis, Piers, and I'm going to fight for them every single day as their next governor. Okay,
let's get to the sin tax. You've proposed a 50% sin tax on OnlyFans creators to discourage what you call immoral behaviour. So just explain that.
Well, there was a time not too long ago in the United States of America where young girls aspired to be cooks and lawyers and reporters and doctors, and nowadays they are resigned to the fact that if they have an unexpected expense or they need to cover their rent or groceries, the quickest way for them to do that is being exploited by the OnlyFans platform. And so I respect women. I respect them enough to think that they are capable of anything they put their minds to, and I never want a woman in my state to be exploited by the online sex slavery that is OnlyFans.
But I thought it was a voluntary platform.
It's not. There's nothing voluntary about a platform that exploits women and forces them to sell nude photos on the internet. Piers.
When you say this is a classic
case.
Just to be clear about what OnlyFans is, correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding about OnlyFans is it's voluntary. No one's forcing you to do it. People go on OnlyFans, create an account, and they charge money for whatever they want to put on their account. I'm not sure where the exploitation element, as you're articulating it, is.
Well, this is often the defense of sex trafficking, that a 15-year-old girl is voluntarily entering.
Sex trafficking is illegal.
And I believe that OnlyFans should be illegal as well.
Really?
There's nothing
Why?
voluntary
what law are they breaking?
Well, there's nothing. Well, I would change the law. I would change the law. That's how we do things. I mean, slavery wasn't illegal, and then we said this is a moral repugnancy.
But who's enslaving people on OnlyFans?
And we changed the law.
I'm really curious. Maybe you've consumed a lot more OnlyFans content than me, and you see
I've never
trafficking
been on
and slavery
OnlyFans,
and everything
Piers.
else. But I'm not aware that that is what OnlyFans is. It has a lot of adult content, but legal adult content, which is monitored according to the law, and that people who have accounts there do so voluntarily. They open accounts and they charge money. We have somebody I'm going to bring in a moment, Sophie Rain, who has made $43 million from her account on OnlyFans. I don't think she's been enslaved or exploited. I think she's perfectly happy and enjoys what she does. I mean, I'll talk to her in a moment, but why do you feel she's a slave?
So I feel that this is a classic case of Stockholm syndrome, where the individual, the victim, the enslaved person doesn't feel that they have real agency. This goes back to Sociology 101, Piers, that someone is induced to believing they have choice, they have agency, when in fact they can't make a decision for themselves. I want young girls in my state to aspire to be astronauts, doctors, nurses, small business owners. I believe a radical thing that women can do anything they put their minds to, Piers, and I don't want them resigned to the fact
just to be
that they
clear,
have to
do you think
sell.
modelling is modelling to you immoral?
I think naked modeling, however you want to euphemize it, naked modeling is immoral.
I mean,
Absolutely.
Cindy Crawford was one of the greatest iconic supermodels of all time. She's done naked modeling. So is she a sinner? Is she immoral? Should she be paying 50% back of her income?
Well, in that particular act of modeling, yes, and modeling nude, but you and I both know that Cindy Crawford was not known for her nude modeling. She was predominantly known for modeling for runway shows.
So should we
in London,
retrospectively
Paris,
go
and New
back
York.
to every supermodel who's ever posed nude and get 50% back of their income from those pictures?
As much as I'd love to do that, that's not legally possible. What I'm going to do is I'm going to raise an OnlyFans
Why do you have a problem
syntax.
with women's naked bodies, James?
By the way, Piers, you keep talking about women. There are thousands of men on OnlyFans, and this is going to apply just as equally to them. And so you're the one selectively outraged about women.
That's a very good point.
It's a very good point. If you're a man or a woman producing or consuming this content, and by the way, Piers, what you haven't brought up is that as governor, I would also levy a consumption tax. I'm not going to spare the men in this equation as well. If you're a young man and you're watching pornography, put down the phone. Go to church, pray, and find a real God-fearing woman. Society is not going to be dictated by men and women commodifying and using one another in these ephemeral social relationships. No, it's not transactional sex. It is a romantic experience that is reserved for a man and a woman in the sanctity of marriage.
OK, well, look, why don't we just bring in Sophie Rain? Just hang on there, Jade, because it'd be quite interesting to have you guys talk to each other. So, Sophie, welcome to Uncensored.
Hello, thank you for having me.
You have 4.5 million, well, there are 4.5 million OnlyFans creators. You are, I think, the highest earner. It's claimed that you've made $43 million. You've got 8.5 million Instagram followers, 14 million on TikTok. So you're a massive social media phenomenon. For those who are not familiar with your work, how would you describe it?
Well, I post on many platforms. I post content on Instagram. I post content on TikTok and all the above. And I also post content on OnlyFans. And honestly, I do a little bit of everything. I do a little dancing TikTok videos. I'll post Instagram photos. And then obviously my OnlyFans content.
And would you describe it as pornographic, or what would you describe it as?
I mean, I wouldn't describe it as pornographic, but it's definitely adult content for sure.
So what do you feel about James Fishback and his plan to tax you 50% as a sin tax for being a sinner?
I mean, I'm going to be honest, it's ridiculous. It's very ridiculous. Florida already has no income state tax. It doesn't exist. So it seems very selective, and it seems like it's a punishment.
There. James, are you there, James? Yeah, you are. I mean, Sophie says that that she feels like this is a punishment. Why are you punishing her?
Well, hey, Sophie, good to meet you. It's not a punishment at all. What it is a deterrent. I think Sophie recognizes that our state was better off when young women aspired to be teachers, small business owners, doctors, and lawyers, as opposed to creating adult content. I can respect Sophie Rain as an individual and still respectfully call out that I don't want thousands of young women who are in high school today to feel like the only way they can make a living when they graduate is selling adult content, video, photos of themselves on the internet. And so, Sophie, look, with all due respect, I know you're from Florida. I'm from Florida. We both love our state. I want what's best for you, and I want what's best for every single woman in our state, and that's not to be objectified and exploited by the OnlyFans owners.
Sophie, what's your response to that?
I feel like as adults, we are all able to legally make our own decisions. And I think that we should also educate a lot more on all of these opportunities that you're speaking of, because I just don't think that we should be singling out any individual for what they choose to do.
James?
Well, I want to single out drug dealers, Sophie. I want to single out people who are committing crimes in our society. And so as governor, my responsibility is very simple. I want to make sure that there is a path. I'm not going to be one of those Republicans who's going to attack women.
And it seems to me that your initial assertions before we spoke to Sophie, that she was, that people like her on OnlyFans are enslaved, they're being exploited. And then you do an analogy just now to drugs and whatever, which are illegal, obviously. Nothing she's doing is illegal. It seems to be entirely of her own free will. She's very happy doing it. She's very popular doing it. Under the First Amendment...
Well, have you asked her that, Piers? Have you asked her if she's happy?
Under the First Amendment of the US Constitution, what business is it of yours to stick your oar in and want 50% of her cash?
No. Piers, did you ask her if she was happy? Because she posted a video 2 weeks ago on International Women's Day where she was interviewing her former self, who looked to be disappointed, who aspired to be, quite literally, in Sophie Rain's own words, an astronaut. Sophie, you are smart. I know you. I know your family. You are capable of anything you put your mind to. And so when you're doing this little cute Spider-Man dance online and you're creating this adult content, know that that person that you used to be still wants something more out of you. And I, as the governor of the state, want every single woman in Florida to achieve their maximum potential.
Sophie?
I mean, I think just realistically speaking, I'm very happy with where I am, and I promise I would have never got to where I am without the platform. Like, I've built businesses outside of this. I am constantly, chasing new dreams and everything. Like, I'm very happy with where I am.
Yeah, Sophie, you come from a devout Christian family, I understand. You grew up, by your own admission, pretty poor. The family didn't have much money, relied on food stamps as a child. You were working as a waitress. You then went on OnlyFans. You said you got fired from your restaurant job and your boss discovered the account and so on. And now, obviously, you've become incredibly successful and rich doing this. What do your family make of your transition into this world?
They're actually very supportive of me. Definitely at first, they didn't really understand it and they were cautious of it. But I sat them down and I talked them through everything. I'm being safe. I'm doing everything legal. Like, I'm good, and they're very supportive of where I am.
Are you genuinely happy?
I am. I would have never. I own my own house. Who at 21 can say that? Like, this has gave me so much autonomy over my life, and I'm just so grateful for the platform, because I wouldn't have been here, especially in today's economy.
Right. I mean, James Fishback, I'm thinking of, say, the Kardashians, people like that, right? They're always stripping off and they're making millions, billions, actually, as a family, from their bodies predominantly. They don't have any other discernible real talent. It's just stripping off and being, in the media. And it's been very successful. Does your sin tax apply to them?
The sin tax applies to adult content on the internet, whether it's OnlyFans or any other platform. Piers, let me just ask Sophie a question. Sophie, if the number of women doing OnlyFans tripled in Florida tomorrow, would that be a good or a bad thing?
I think honestly, it would be a great thing. A lot of women are trying to find different ways to make more income in a, heavily damaged economy. So I think that there should be those opportunities out there for these women to make an income.
Do you hear, Sophie? Let me ask Sophie
but
a
Sophie and I
that.
both agree. We both agree that the economy is badly damaged. I proudly voted for President Trump, Piers, in 2024. And I have to tell you that I am not proud of the work that he has done. We are not living in a golden age whatsoever. People in my state are struggling under the weight of this affordability crisis. And Sophie Rain and I see eye to eye that this economy is hurting a lot of people. I think that where we disagree is that the economy hurts people, and Sophie Rain wants to say, let's get them to join OnlyFans. And what I say is, let's get new job training, especially for women. Let's create new pathways, new opportunities at our public universities, career technical school. Let's create a statewide internship program for anyone under the age of 25 to get a great paying job that will teach them new skills in the 21st century. So Sophie, you and I see eye to eye. Where we, I think, disagree is the solution. When you say that tripling the number of OnlyFans creators is a good thing, that speaks to the damage of the economy. What I want to do is create a real economy that allows people like those women to do something dignified.
Or you're missing, maybe you're missing. Yeah, but James, I mean, you keep talking for Sophie, I've noticed, right? I think you should let her speak for herself, not least because she's worth $43 million. But the point I would make is, what about, the argument that women are empowered to make their own decisions about their own bodies, their own choices, their own careers.
So let me ask you a question, Piers. If a woman is empowered to make their own decision about their own body, and a woman struggles to pay the rent, do we then encourage that woman to sell one of her kidneys to pay the rent and say it was her own decision? No,
she's not selling her kidney.
Women.
She's not selling her kidney.
Hold on. But where do you draw the line, Piers? She is imperiling her future as a mom, as a worker. You just heard Sophie say
How is she
was
imperiling
fired
her future
from her
as a
job.
mother? I don't get that.
Piers,
How does she imperil her future as a mother?
Well, let me tell you how. You just heard Sophie tell you that she was fired from her job when her boss found out her OnlyFans.
Yeah.
She was fired from her job.
Yeah.
And now, with all due respect to Sophie, what are you going to tell your daughter in 10 or 15 years when all of these images are all over the internet and your daughter is being bullied in middle school and was told that you guys were Christians? With all due respect, what do you say then? It creates a real weight, a real tension between a mom and her children, and of course, a worker and her employer. I don't want to encourage women to go on OnlyFans and then get fired from their job and then have a real fight at home about what mommy did on the internet last week.
Okay, Sophie?
I mean, I'm only 21. I haven't even thought about having kids yet. But also, I think that the main discussion here is sin tax. And like in the state of Florida, there's already no income tax. So, and that's also one of the main identities of Florida, is that it is a no income state tax. And I think the main issue here is you're attacking women already on the site making money.
I'm attacking men as well.
Exactly. There's multiple people on the site, and not everyone does adult content. OnlyFans is a massive platform, and you can do anything on there. Not everything is adult content based.
Well, I think to be fair to him, Sophie, he's not saying that everyone on OnlyFans should get the sin tax. He's just saying the people that he considers to be sinful should get a tax, and you're one of them. He thinks you're a sinner. What do you say to that?
Well, sin tax is, he's proposing that is going to attack everyone on the OnlyFans site. So does that include all of, the cooks on there that are just selling their recipes?
No, it doesn't, Sophie. No, it doesn't.
So how do you single out?
Please don't be disingenuous.
How do you work out who's a sinner and who's not, James? Are you going to be launching a sin purge? How are you going to do this?
Well, we're going to put you in charge of it, Piers. And so
the way you do it is... I have a very broad
is...
mind, James. I think if people are obeying the law, they can do what they like with their own lives. What's it got to do with you?
You know what? So what do you say then? Because prior to slavery being illegal, they were obeying their law. They owned 100 black people. Does that make it okay? Of course not. Let me get to the very specific point that I think Sophie made in good faith. Why do you think she's a slave?
You have, of all the arguments you've used,
that's called an analogy.
Some of the points you've made have validity. But this idea that somehow Sophie is some sort of slave, I'm just not buying that.
Look, Sophie may not be a slave. She hasn't made $43 million. Don't lowball her. She's made over $100 million. When I talk to young women in our state...
Is that right, Sophie?
That is correct, yes.
You've made over $100 million.
In a span of 2 years, yes.
Sophie, if you want to be my running mate and be the lieutenant governor of Florida, it'll cost you $10 million. You'd be happy to do it. I'd be honored to have you.
Sophie?
No, I don't think so.
You just got to quit.
Out of interest, Sophie, I have to say, I mean this with no disrespect, but I'm not aware, I haven't viewed your work. What is it that makes you so popular?
I think that I'm just very transparent with my audience. I'm never over here encouraging people to try and join the site. I'm very clear on the pros and cons of it also, but I'm just very transparent.
So then hold on, what are the cons? Then what are the cons? What is the con? Let's be transparent. What is the con of joining OnlyFans?
I mean, exactly like you said, I'm not going to sit here and lie and say that OnlyFans is a great site. Some of the points you are making are correct, like, it's damaging to the future. And I want people to understand and educate themselves, but women still should be able to make that decision for themselves at the end of the day. And they shouldn't have to worry about
I'm raising a tax to disincentivize and deter it. I'm not banning it.
Yeah, that's a fair point. That is what he's doing. Sophie, if you had a daughter, would you want her to do what you're doing?
I mean, I would let her decide. It's up to her decision.
But do you think as a mother you would want that?
I think that I would be supportive of it no matter what. Yes.
Sophie, would you be supportive of your son selling crack cocaine?
No, that is illegal.
Right.
Okay, so why, what is this difference between legal and illegal? Why can't we just say it's moral or immoral?
Because one's legal and one's not.
Then where do you draw the line? Where do you draw the line? A lot of people have different opinions.
In Afghanistan, you can marry an 8-year-old. It is quite literally legal in Afghanistan to marry an 8-year-old. And so does that make it right, Sophie?
We don't live in Afghanistan.
Right. What are you talking about?
It's an analogy. It's an analogy. It's an analogy.
It's a ridiculous analogy. You're choosing a country with totally different laws.
Doesn't make sense.
In the United States of America, Sophie Rain,
prior to slavery being
obeys
illegal,
the same laws that you do, James.
No, Piers. Prior to slavery being illegal, would you have opposed slavery because it was legal? It was legal, Piers. It's okay if it's legal, right?
Sophie?
Oh, you're asking me? I mean, I didn't live back then. I'm just here to talk about what we are here to talk about, which
It's an
is
analogy.
syntax,
Of
and it's a
course you didn't
selective.
live back then, Sophie. Of course you didn't. This is my issue. This is my issue. I'm here to have a good faith conversation with a former Florida resident, a current Florida resident. And my point to Sophie is this, is if you want to keep doing this, then we're going to take 50% of what you earn and we're going to use it to raise public school teacher pay. Our public school teachers are not getting paid enough. We're going to use this as a resource to fund the empowerment of young women who have signed up to do something dignified, with all due respect, unlike you, and be a public school teacher, educating, inspiring, and motivating.
Do you know what, James?
The next generation.
You know what? Here's what I would say. I've got to end this debate. Here's what I would say. I've listened to both of you, and you've both made good points. But honestly, that last statement you made was so pompous and patronising. Honestly, who are you to be the great moral arbiter of what young women do with themselves legally in the United States? Who are you to say if you become governor, you're going to take half her money in a state where they don't have even state income tax? It's like there's a real arrogance to this, that you've decided you are the moral arbiter of every Floridian. And it may be why you're trailing so badly in the polls. And Sophie, the good news for you is don't worry about it, because he's not going to win. So you're not going to end up giving Mr. Fishback any money for his plans, much as it would be great to put more money into teachers in public schools. Of course it would be. But it won't be coming from you, Sophie Rain, because he ain't going to win.
Well, if I'm not going to win, Sophie Rain can put a $5 million bet on Polymarket tonight that I'm not going to win. She'll make a lot of money. What I will tell you, Piers, is the same arrogance,
Sophie doesn't need the money, but I might do that so that I can become as wealthy as Sophie Rain.
The same arrogance that said that Donald Trump could never win, that Zohran Mamdani could never win. Why don't you come to Florida and come to one of our rallies where we're drawing crowds larger than anyone else in this race?
Let me tell you, I was the lone voice in the UK who confidently predicted Donald Trump would win in 2016. And you know why I knew he'd win? Because I'd been down interviewing serial killers in Florida, and I could feel the Trump train surging and the Hillary train hitting the buffers. So my political instincts are very good, and I'm afraid the way the polls look at the moment, James Fishback, to quote my favourite phrase, you have two hopes, no hope and Bob hope. But miracles can happen in politics, and I wish you all the best. Sophie Rain, thank you very much indeed for joining me. I wish you continued success. I think women should better do what they want with themselves, as long as it's within the confines of the law. And so should you, James.
We're going to change the law, and we are going to change the law, Piers.
Well, we'll see about that. If you win, you can try.
If I win, Sophie Rain's going to owe me $50 million. I'm going to raise teacher pay all over the state. That's what we're going to do, and we're going to proudly do it, because in Florida, we don't let our women be exploited by OnlyFans degeneracy. We inspire them to be something more. And Sophie, there's still more time. There's still time left for you to quit OnlyFans and do something dignified. I say that with love. I've never attacked you personally. I truly want what's best for you and your family.
Sophie, let me answer that, because I think one of you will be quitting this year, their current job, and it won't be you, and it won't be me. I've got to leave it there. Thank you. Well, James, I've given you a good argument. You know what? Some of the points you made were perfectly valid points. I don't think I would want my daughter, for example, to be doing what Sophie's doing.
Piers. So then why can't you just say that without disparaging our supporters?
Yeah, but,
why can't you just say that without disparaging our supporters?
You don't have many supporters.
I don't. Well, who were the 500 people at the University of Florida last week, the largest political event in a decade since Hillary Clinton ran for president?
Let me bet. I'll bet you.
Piers, you're 3,000 miles away disparaging our supporters, hardworking people.
I have a home in the United States. I'm there all the time. I've worked and lived there for 20 years, so don't be patronising to me too. You've already been patronising enough to Sophie. Why don't we say this? I'll bet you $10,000 to a charity of your choice you do not win. Do you accept the bet?
Well, I want to know what the odds are, because Polymarket wants to
just
give
me and you.
10 to 1.
Mano to mano.
At what odds? I get 10,000, you get 10,000. That's a 50-50 bet,
against
Piers.
Mr. Perfect. Let's have a little 10 grand bet to charity on camera.
Sure.
On camera.
Sure.
I say you're going to lose. If you are this confident you're going to win, take the bet.
I'll take the bet if you give me $100,000. That's the 10 to 1 on Polymarket right now. If I win, you give me $100,000.
No, I'm not giving you odds. If you're not confident you can win, I understand it.
The odds are on Polymarket.
So you accept
right now,
the Polymarket's
Piers.
right, you're going to get shellacked. You accept it.
Piers, I look forward to everyone, including Sophie, voting on Election Day, August 18th.
James, I'll give you one last chance. If you genuinely think you're going to win $10,000 to charity, of both our choices. The winner chooses which charity. Do you accept my bet? I say you're going to lose. You say you're going to win.
Limits on what charity, Piers, because I don't want you giving money to abortion clinics, Piers, or to
it
Mr.
would be the
Suds
Intrepid
Daycare.
Fallen Heroes Fund.
I
Is that
want
good
the
enough for
money
you?
to be specifically given to a pro-life charity.
It would go to. You can give it to any charity you want. I'll give mine when I win to the Intrepid Fallen Heroes Fund, which is the charity I supported when I won Celebrity Apprentice in America. So just to be clear, are you accepting my bet?
I think it's a fair bet, Piers.
Great. 10 grand to charity. When you lose, I'll come and get you back on the show, and we'll have you donating that to my charity. That would be great. Thank you both very much indeed for joining me.
Thank you.
Thanks, Piers.
The term viral is chronically overused, but there's no question it applies to Priya Patel, the Conservative influencer whose video on immigration has been viewed 30 million times this week so far.
This is your friendly reminder that immigration without assimilation is invasion. Got it?
Well, the problem with viral clips, of course, is that you never know if the 6-second sensation can back up their hubris on the big stage. So we thought we'd put it to the test with an uncensored debate. Joining me now are Priya Patel, the aforementioned Conservative influencer, and Brian Shapiro, host of Pushing the Limits. So first of all, Brian Shapiro, this got a huge kickback, this very short video. It's gone hugely viral, obviously. The main sort of issue that people have had with this is that Priya Patel is basically lecturing people about immigration in the United States, but is called Priya Patel and therefore presumably has a heritage which might be in conflict with the statement. What's your view of this?
Well, first of all, Piers, good to be back with you. Good to see you. Yeah, you're right. This video certainly went viral. My issue is look at all the white nationalists that were commenting, and she knows this, on her social media pages. That's what's concerning to me, the hatred and the white nationalists that are commenting there. That would be issue number one. Issue number two for me, listen, I have no problem with people coming to this country, learning the language, and taking some classes and learning the history of America and culture. I have no problem with that at all. But what I want in this country, and I think what most people want in this country, is diversity as well. Now, we can go back to her family. I don't know a lot about her family, but in my opinion, a lot of her views and a lot of the stuff that she talks about would lead to her never being born in this country to begin with. And I think that's where she's getting some of the pushback. Listen, I don't support any racism. I don't support some of the hateful comments that she's received. But like I said, there's a lot of comments on her social media and a lot of white nationalists. That's very concerning to me, Piers, and I have a serious problem with that. And that's not culture of America. And that's where my issue lies here.
Okay. Well, Priya Patel, you're the woman of the moment this week. This has gone massively viral. First of all, are you surprised by how much pickup this has had, this clip?
To be honest, I am surprised with the amount of attention that it's gotten, but not surprised altogether, because I've had a viral video that hit on a very similar point prior to this. It didn't go nearly as viral, so of course that is shocking. But yes, I understand that it is a very provocative statement coming from somebody named Priya Patel. However, of course, these people have no idea about my family history and my background.
Right, which is perfectly fair enough. So let's just
assumptions.
clear that up, because I think that's obviously key to the whole debate, because you were born in the United States, is that right?
Yes.
Right, but where were your parents from? Are they from the United States or somewhere else?
My mother is from the United States. My father immigrated here as a young boy, and from England, actually, not from India.
Okay. So he's English?
Yeah,
Is English your father, or?
He was born in Uganda, immigrated to England when he was about 3 years old, after the dictator Idi Amin chased out all of the Indians out of Uganda, and waited their turn to be able to come to the United States, and did so when he was in his teenage years.
So you say all the Indians. So is your father part Indian, or what's his background?
My father is full Indian.
He's full Indian. So your father's Indian, your mother is American, or is she, what is she? What's her ethnicity?
American, yes.
And what's her ethnicity?
On my mother's side, I have ancestry date. Mixed European. She's a half German, quarter English, and then the rest is mixed European. But aside from that, I mean, I have ancestry on my mother's side of her family dating back to the 1700s in the United States. So. Okay, so
I'm only just trying to clarify, because as you know, there's been a lot of speculation. Not much is known about your family, but a lot of people will say, so your father was an Indian Indian immigrant from Uganda, into the UK. You know, how does that sit with you saying what you said? Because you're a friendly reminder that immigration without assimilation is invasion. I mean, did your father invade the UK?
No, of course not. But, you know, there is a personal duty on the part of immigrants to assimilate to the culture of the country that they are blessed enough to come to, especially when it comes to, of course, that sort of situation. But honestly, anybody that is blessed enough to come to the United States in particular.
I mean, Brian, look, that is an argument. People say, yeah, a lot of countries, the United States, the UK, others have had big issues with controlling immigration. And a lot of people say if you come to a country from another place and you refuse to assimilate in any way and want to just stay out of the society and culture that you've come into, that people shouldn't tolerate that. What's your view of that argument?
Completely disagree with that. And in my personal opinion, I think in a way it's a bigoted view. You can come to this country and you could learn about our culture. I have no problem with that. But that doesn't mean you have to abide by our cultures and what we do. The thing that makes America great is our diversity and the fact that there are all sorts of different cultures, people with different backgrounds that live in the United States of America. That's the way it should be. The idea that people should be forced after they come to this country to do exactly what American U.S. citizens tell them to do is absolutely absurd and ridiculous. In this country, we have freedoms. And when you become a naturalized citizen, and if you come into this country the right way, you should be allowed to do whatever you want as far as your culture is concerned, your religion is concerned. And for somebody to say, you must do this or you must do that, that's against everything the United States of America stands for. And I wish she would at least admit that in this debate.
Okay, well, do you admit that, Priya?
No, I don't admit that. You know, we have cultures and norms that we have a duty to uphold as a society, and I think that you know, it should be enforced to some degree. And whether it's on a societal or a governmental level, I guess that's up for us to eventually decide, but it has to be implemented some way or another.
Well, everybody has to abide by the same... Well, look, to be clear, everyone has to abide by the laws of the country that they're living in. Right, so that's just a given in somewhere like the United States or UK. So we can all agree that because that's obviously a fact. But when it comes to cultural differences, in a country of 340 million people, there are obviously myriad cultures, ethnicities, religious creeds, and so on in the United States. It's a real hot potch of people. Famously, it's how the United States was created. People came from all over the world. You know, I'm just curious what you mean by assimilation. What should these people all be doing in a uniform way?
Well, I would disagree with the statement, Piers, that America was built on the fact that people came from all over the world. No, it was a very, very select few group of people that came here to the United States and built it. Of course, since then, we've welcomed a good chunk of the entire world to come to our country, which I would argue is, yes. You said that it was built on the idea that people were coming from all over the world.
Well,
but
the
aside
whole
from the fact,
premise
I'm sure
of the United States of
agree.
America is that people have come from everywhere, right? That's been the glorious selling point of the United States, is it's open to all. You've got to come in legally, and that's been a contentious issue. But once you get there, I'm not sure. As Brian says, why should you feel compelled to abide by a specific culture? I mean, what is the specific American culture, for example? How would you articulate it?
Why exactly, if you didn't want to assimilate to American culture, live as an American, why exactly would you leave the country that you came from to begin with if you're only going to bring your culture's customs and norms and implement them
maybe
here
the same
and
reason your
completely
father left
disregard that of the
war-torn
American
Uganda.
people?
You know, maybe the same reason your father left war-torn Uganda.
Do you not understand that?
Sure, but
do you not understand that there are people that are seeking asylum that want a better life for themselves and their families, that are afraid that they could even lose their lives? Do you understand how many people are seeking asylum and are in fear of their life? For you to make the statement
that is a very small percentage of people coming to the United States. Very, very small percentage. And the large majority of people committing
I'm just saying you're making assumptions.
The large majority of people claiming asylum are actually economic migrants. They're not from war-torn countries or suffering under political persecution.
One of the other comments, Priya, you said, which did get a lot of attention, you said not all cultures are equal and we shouldn't be importing the third world. So what did you mean by the third world?
I mean, I think that's pretty evident. There are a large majority of countries that are still considered third world. They are not.
Well, which
they're not
ones?
privy to any of the.
Which ones would you say are third world?
I mean, you could take into account a lot of countries in Africa, in the Middle East, in Asia.
Well, give me some names of countries
to come from this list.
Give me some names.
You could probably take in Uganda. For example, would actually probably be considered a third world country
for you.
I would believe so. Yes.
Where else do you think is a third world country?
You know, there are parts of countries like Bangladesh and a great many others, but that's somewhat aside from the point.
Would you classify India as a third world country?
I think there's been a lot of debate whether it is or not. There are certain parts of India that are, of course, very westernized and would probably be considered a first world country. However, I think there are a lot of parts of India that, yes, should be considered a third world country still today.
And what do you mean by third world? What does that mean?
I mean, we've had a lot of technological advances and societal advances that a lot of parts of the world have not managed to either keep up with or come to that at this point in time. But to think that people can come from these, for lack of better words, dated societies and just be placed in America and they just magically assimilate, especially when we bring them here en masse, I think that is a massive, massive issue because, of course, these people are not prepared for this. I think if we did it on a very small scale, that it could be successful. Of course, we've seen that plenty of times throughout.
And just to be clear, when you say not all cultures are equal, which cultures, in your view, are inferior?
I mean, quite a few, to be honest with you. I'm not going to sit here and call out people's specific cultures, however.
Well, which ones? Which cultures are
why not?
inferior?
Call it out.
Yeah.
Which ones?
Sure, fine. Afghanistan would be a good example.
That's a country, not a culture.
Well, of course, the culture that comes from Afghanistan, we can talk about the Muslim culture that comes from the Middle Eastern countries. I would argue that those aren't particularly equal. I mean, we see a lot of...
So the whole Muslim culture of what, over a billion, well, actually nearly 2 billion people.
I didn't say the whole Muslim culture.
Well, you said Muslim.
You just said it.
Correct. I said some of the Muslim cultures that we're seeing from the Middle East.
Well, just to be clear, I'm just trying to work out what you believe. So you think the Muslim culture is an inferior culture?
In a lot of ways, yes.
Wow.
It's just so ridiculous, Piers.
Okay.
This is so ridiculous.
Brian, I think we're getting to why this comment went viral, why both those comments went viral.
First of all, it's extremely offensive. I would ask her how many Muslim people does she know, number one. Number two, when you take an entire group of people,
quite a few, and they're actually very westernized.
I didn't interrupt you. I did not interrupt you. Please let me finish. When you take an entire group of people, when you take an entire group of people and say they are lesser than us, that is pure bigotry. And I'm not surprised.
Actually, I stated in that video my exact. You made an incorrect statement about my position.
You just thought Afghanistan was a culture, so don't talk to me about statements that people make that are not correct. Okay?
Countries have culture, Brian.
Piers, here's the issue we have here. Okay? And I'm going to instill politics into this. When you go on her social media page, she echoes a lot of similar things that MAGA Republicans echo, taking an entire group of people like the Laura Loomers of the world, saying they all should be deported, or in this case, taking all Muslims and saying they're inferior to Americans. She has a MAGA hat on her social media page.
Not what I said.
And what she does is she caters to MAGA Republicans in her base. It's why she gets all the views she gets. And I think it's extremely offensive, I'll say it once again, to take an entire group of people. That would be, how would you feel if somebody said everybody that is Indian is inferior to Americans? You would say that's racist. That's a terrible thing to say.
Well, hang on. Let me ask the question.
I would never say that.
Well, let me ask the question. Would you say that about Indians, Priya?
Of course, and I would not. Of course not. I would never say that about any race or group of people.
You literally just said it about Muslims.
You just said it about Muslims.
You couldn't have been clearer. I gave you the chance to clarify, and you clarified it.
And that's perfectly fine. Look, I do think America has a superior
you're
culture,
fine
and
to
I would
have
like
that
to
view, and it's perfectly
that.
fine that we think it's a bigoted view and very hypocritical if you then say that other vast countries like India are exempt from your bigotry, because Well, guess
No,
what? Your father happens to be Indian.
That's, of course, never what I said, Piers.
No, but people think you're a hypocrite.
You guys
'cause
are
they
both
say
taking
your
things out
father's
of
an
completely
Indian.
out of context.
They say your father's an Indian, but here you are condemning
always out
all
of
Muslims
context.
as somehow culturally inferior.
That's fine. I've been very critical about Indian immigration to this country too. I'm not picking and choosing
But when you
one
say
group
that,
of
when you say
people,
that
I
some
simply think-
cultures are less equal, you're a Christian, I understand. Is that right?
Correct. Yes, that's correct.
So,
and
so
if
where
you
does
would let
this
me
sit?
clarify
Where does this
exactly
sit
what I
with
said.
as a fellow Christian, well, hang on. As a fellow Christian, I
Sure.
thought the teachings were quite clear that all men are created equally. Where does this sit with that?
Correct, Pearson. Did you watch? I don't know if either of you watched the entirety of that video where I was talking about culture. I specifically did state that all people are created equal under the eyes of God and the law, of course. However, we do have a society that we're supposed to uphold here in America, and like you, Pierce, in England, right? You don't want a lot of foreign invaders coming into your country and completely causing the collapse of your society and of your country. If people are blessed enough to come to America,
So would you,
or come to
out of
England,
interest,
they do
to
have
stop this invasion, as you put it, would you deport all foreigners from the United States?
No, I would not deport all foreigners from the United States. I would certainly deport all of the illegal foreigners that are here in the United States.
What about those that just didn't sign up to your worldview of what the culture should be?
No, I don't necessarily think that they should all be deported from the United States, but I think we do need a very slow and if not a halt on immigration as a whole currently, so that we can, as a society and allow our government to continue to help these people assimilate to our culture, actually fix our immigration system so that it works with our country, so that we can keep it intact as it is, and honestly, maybe get back to what we were, originally founded on.
I think we'll leave it there. Brian and Priya, thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Last week on the show, I interviewed former wrestler and Minnesota Governor Jesse Ventura. He made a lot of eyebrow-raising claims, many of which I'm sure he'd be more than happy to make again. In one specific case, he asserted that President Trump was only inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame because he helped Vince McMahon beat some serious allegations. It's been pointed out by many people that Trump was in fact inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2013, more than a decade before the Department of Justice investigated and declined to prosecute Mr. McMahon. Not the first time I've corrected the governor, and I'm sure it probably won't be the last. Piers Morgan Uncensored is proudly independent. The only boss around here is me. If you enjoy our show, we ask for only one simple thing. Hit subscribe on YouTube and follow Piers Morgan Uncensored on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And in return, we will continue our mission to inform, irritate, and entertain. And we'll do it all for free. Independent, uncensored media has never been more critical, and we couldn't do it without you.